Good morning, everyone. And thank you, Ms. Guzman, for that wonderful introduction. You know, it's a great pleasure to serve under the Obama administration, and especially to serve under Secretary Ernest Moniz. Under their leadership, we truly have the ability to move forward and invest in the next generation of energy leaders, focusing on making the energy sector look as all of America does. Honoring the contributions of minorities in the energy sector, in the industry, is key for us as one of the main focuses for today. I know when the department's operations model, as you know, is one of a strong public and private partnership. And merging, if you look at the 17 national labs we have around the country, many of those are ran through partnerships with private corporations and universities. So that was fitting for us to look at the initiative that I was asked to take on by Secretary Moniz, is to work with all the minority communities across the nation and focus on key areas that are of interest in the energy sector. All of these communities came together and they all brought their individual contribution to that. But it was interesting that the three key areas that did bubble up from that was those of minority energy economic development, climate change, and STEM education. Those are the three areas that we will be focusing on today, and those are areas that will lead into our breakout sessions. And as importantly, I want to make sure that we acknowledge those members, not only of my staff, but those that are also members of the community, as well as the industry. And at this moment, for a quick second, I would like to have all those that have participated in pulling this opportunity off together, please stand. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. And we also had the pleasure of bringing the legislative branch into the conversation. So I would like to thank the staff from Senator Landrieu's office, from Congressman Bobby Rush's office, Congresswoman Robin Kelly, and also Congressman Donald Payne. So if we look at the areas that we want to focus on today, as I mentioned, the three areas of interest, I now would like to have the pleasure of introducing our Secretary of Energy, Dr. Ernest Moniz. Dr. Moniz was a professor of physics and engineering systems at MIT, where he was a faculty member since 1973. Most recently, Dr. Moniz served as the founding director for the MIT Energy Initiative and the MIT Laboratory for Energy and Environment, and was a leader of a multidisciplinary technology and policy studies in the future of nuclear power, coal, nuclear fuels, cycles, natural gas, solar energy in a low carbon world. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Dr. Ernest Moniz, who is not new to the department. He was actually an undersecretary for the Department of Energy from 1997 until January of 2001. He has also served from 1995 to 1997 as the Associate Director for Science in the Office of Science and Technology. So he is coming back home. So with that, please welcome our amazing Secretary, Ernest Moniz.
Well, thank you, Dot. I appreciated most of that introduction. Not the revelation of my 40 years at MIT, however, which I thought was a bit aggressive. But it really is a great pleasure to be here today for celebrating Hispanic Heritage Month and for being the launch event of the Minorities in Energy Initiative that we'll be talking about much more today. Dot has been, as she said, a very strong partner in this, and Dot, both heads our Economic Impact and Diversity Office, as was stated, but also was not stated, also is our lead person in terms of civil rights going forward. So she does a great job, and as was stated, it really draws upon her private sector experience and her dedication to what we're here to celebrate today, and to more broadly to STEM education initiatives. I do want to just say a few words about I'm going to apologize to some of the panelists, but there's a few that I'd just like to say a couple words about. Senator Landrieu, she and I were rookies in the federal government together in 1997, and recall, in fact, our discussions on energy way back then, and she remains a leader in the energy conversation. I want to mention explicitly my predecessor, Secretary Hazel O'Leary, sitting here in the front row, and you should all go look at the beautiful portrait of Hazel up in the 7th floor. And just want to say that Hazel was our 7th secretary. I'm the 13th. But I think one of the things that we forget is that Secretary O'Leary was really the first secretary of the post-Cold War era. And we should not forget what that meant in terms of the change that came and was needed in this department and today. So we thank you for that. And finally, I want to mention Jim Gates, the physicist down here. Jim is a professor at Maryland. You'll be meeting him, but I want to say that when was it? 1977, maybe? 77. I was on his PhD committee, his defense committee. And so he's not much younger than I am, and which you can also see, by the way. But I'd say at that time, Jim has reminded me, I said to him at that time, this was the best defense I had seen in physics at MIT. So. And now we have been, until my being reassigned by the president to a different job, we have been colleagues on PCAST, President's Council of Advisors in Science and Technology, and Jim really has been the driving force of a lot of work that PCAST has done on STEM education. I'm sure you'll be hearing about that. So with that, let me again, there are other distinguished panelists, but I'm going to move on to a few remarks. I'll try to be brief, and I do apologize in advance that I will not be able to stay through the entire time because Senator Landrieu's colleagues have put a call on my time coming up. But the Department of Energy, I've said this a number of times, but I think if we think in terms of our role right now in addressing the president's priorities. President Obama this summer again made two very important policy speeches, one on nuclear security in a post-Cold War world, and the other on climate, addressing the risks of climate change, particularly through clean energy technology. Clearly, this department is central in both of those, and part of the theme here is that we're going to need a lot more strong people, and we got to draw from our entire talent pool in this country. I'll return to that. But let me just say a word on the second of those topics, the climate and clean energy. I think one of the things we have to keep in mind is that I believe we are at a inflection point in terms of where we are going with the energy system. We do subscribe, the president and I, to the so-called all-of-the-above energy policy. That is, we believe that all of our fuels are going to play a role for a long time, even as we address the issue of greenhouse gas reduction. But as this energy system evolves in response to the climate imperative, we are talking about a multi-trillion-dollar business issue globally as we evolve today's energy technologies and essentially invent and deploy some of tomorrow's energy technologies. be it solar energy, be it CCS, be it nuclear power, natural gas with a very, very strong role, et cetera. And our philosophy, the president's philosophy, is that, those markets are forming globally today. We got to be on the train. We want to lead that technology revolution. To do so, we're going to need, again, an awful lot of talent. And today, as many of you know, I'll just give a couple of data points. I mean, Hispanics, African Americans, American Indians make up 24% of the overall American workforce, but account for only 9% of the workforce in science and engineering. Right now, women and minorities make up 70% of college students, but only 45% of undergraduate STEM degrees. These are statistics that are not surprising and not new. It doesn't mean that we can stop in trying to address this. Particularly, if we look at the very young, we know the demographics are that these numbers are only going to increase in terms of the role of what we currently call minorities. And so, if we are going to get on that train and really take advantage of the economic opportunities that are going to be presented as we address major issues like climate change risk, we just have to pick up the game in terms of how we, again, draw upon all the talent that we have in this country. That brings me to say just a word, you'll get much more later on, about the Minorities in Energy program that we are launching today. And I might say that really, at least for me, I mean, a lot of the impetus from this came from an exchange with Congressman Rush during a hearing. A hearing is kind of a strange place to make progress, but it actually happened as he really got us to focus more on this issue. I'll just say that some of the structure of the program is to be modeled after another program launched under the Clean Energy Ministerial umbrella that the Department of Energy really led in its formation, an international initiative called the Women in Clean Energy. It's called C3E, but it's the Women in Clean Energy. And there, in my previous life at DOE, we collaborated at MIT. Excuse me, MIT, DOE, I confused them. My previous life at MIT, last year, we collaborated with the Department of Energy to host the first Women in Clean Energy event, and it was just a rousing success. And I understand last week's second chapter was again a rousing success, and it had some structure, for example, in appointing a set of ambassadors who took the responsibility to go out and talk at our high schools and other venues. In that case, to encourage women in this direction. There were also awards of recognition of a variety of types, especially for younger and mid-career women. And this is the kind of thing that we see replicating here now for minorities in energy. Later on this fall, we will have a White House event that Dot is putting together, where we will in fact introduce 20 minorities in energy ambassadors with a similar role that I just described. The ambassadors will take the lead in establishing the awards program, and we are hoping that we can help move the needle at least in terms of addressing this really critical need for our country. So that's really the message I wanted to put out, that we have a need, DOE has a need, the country has a need, our business has a need, and we certainly want to do our part working with you, working with our ambassadors. Maybe some of you out there are going to be ambassadors, and really try to bring our resources to help get more minorities involved in energy. So thank you very much, and I will turn it back to Dot.
You guys engaged? Okay, very good. So we now have another introduction of our next honored guest.
Yes, our next honored guest. Oh, do you have it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. There we go.
Well, there we go. She needs no further introduction.
We bring you.
The Honorable Senator Landrieu.
Thank you, doctors all, and really appreciate the opportunity to be here this morning to give just very brief introductory remarks to this really extraordinary panel. And I'm going to have to slip out as well, but I'm going to get the notes from the meeting because it's a subject that I am extremely interested in, which is why I'm here for several reasons, to give my support and enthusiastic endorsement of this initiative, to thank the Secretary for his leadership. We do go back a long way and have supported each other's careers in a variety of different ways, and I'm so proud of the brain power and passion that he brings to this job and to this department. So, Mr. Secretary, thank you very much. Count me in on other initiatives of yours, but this one is one that really is close to my heart and really appreciate the opportunity. I want to recognize the Secretary. Thank you very much for being here. My dear friend Jack Gerard, who I know in many different ways, not just in the fossil fuels and oil and gas, but through our work on adoption, which is very, very important to the both of us, both domestically and internationally. So, Jack, thank you for your extraordinary leadership. And I wanted to say to Dr. Harris, thank you for including me in the program. Let me just give a couple of follow-up remarks to what the Secretary said. I'm looking forward to the possibility of being the chair of the Energy Committee in the United States Senate, which will happen should I be fortunate enough to be reelected, which in my case is always a question. But I'm in cycle, as many of you know, but look forward to the opportunity to be chair. It's a committee that I've really loved, truly loved serving on for the last 12 years with both Republican chairman and Democratic chairman, as we've tried to find and carve a way forward on energy policy for our nation and continue to lead the world in all the remarkable things that that subject calls for us. But I've also been extremely happy and proud to be chair of the Small Business Committee over the last several years, and thank you. And many of you have testified before my committee on a variety of different issues, and this particular subject, which is participation of minorities, African American, Hispanic, Latino, and also women generally, has been a strong passion of mine since I got elected first. I think I might even beat you, Secretary, in 1979 when I was 23 years old. I was one of only 3 women in the entire House of Representatives in Louisiana. There was one African-American woman of the 3 of us that served with me, no women in the Senate, and it's a long, I guess, happy story about moving up in a place of leadership, et cetera. So I've experienced in my own life the opportunities that should have been available, that haven't been, but we're making them available for all people so that our country can be the stronger because of it. But following up what the Secretary said, this isn't just about opening doors for people that should have doors open for them, and some of us had to kick some of those doors down, but it's really for America to tap into the talent and brain power that is out there, obvious in this room, available, but there are some avenues that seem to be closed or barricaded, or maybe the word we like in Louisiana, we don't really like it, but we have it, debris stacks up and you can't get through, et cetera. We've got to clear out those barriers, that debris, open up the portals for the great strength of America to come forward and continue to help America be the leader in energy in the future, in all forms of it, as the Secretary said, looking towards a cleaner, more vibrant environment. One issue I want to share with you, because I think it's important for this group of strong thinkers to have this in your head as you think today. Obviously, with PhD candidates, the best in the world, sitting right in front of us, we obviously know that we've come a long way in education and graduating top talent in this country, Latino, Hispanic, female talent. We know that the income gaps are closing in America because we can read that in the data of the census. But I want to share with the leaders in this room a startling statistic that came before the Small Business Committee 4 years ago. You can read it in the census data of the United States. But the wealth gap in this country continues to persist and is extremely worrisome. It is not narrowing, it is widening, and the gap in the last census is roughly 110,000 median net worth for Caucasian families, approximately 110, could be 113. Median net worth, everything you owe minus everything you own, or owe minus everything you own. But for Hispanic families, it's 6,000. And for African American families, it's 5,000. Now that is the median net worth. So when you're in a room in the Energy Department in Washington, D.C., talking about minorities in energy, there are lots of positions in energy, but being the head of a major company is significant, creating wealth for yourself, your family, your community, more importantly, opportunity for your network of friends and associates who are not always African American, Hispanic, but it's the way we socialize, much more integrated than before, but still they're patterns of communities and socialization. I want you to think about how startling that is. It is shocking to me that the median net worth of African American families in America today is $5,000, including home equity, and for Latino families is $6,000. So the challenge is, yes, STEM education, targeted, strategies, but it's also business development, capital formation, opportunities for federal government contracting, strengthening and targeting the 8A program, giving, and this is for the federal government to do. It's also a call to every state, New York, California, Minnesota, Louisiana. What are we doing to lift opportunities for wealth and income creation and participation? This is one avenue in energy. So when you all think about it today, we want to celebrate all of the great advancements for our PhDs and but we've got such a long way to go in terms of really using the talent in this community and in our community generally to create wealth and opportunity. And wealth not as a means to itself, but as a result of excellence and hard work, not as something we seek. We seek, greatness, goodness, excellence, hard work. Usually wealth comes with that, not always. It's not what we seek, but it's what the result of our good work is, and prosperity for America. But that prosperity needs to be shared in a way that honors the talent and the strength of the individuals that make up this great country. So let's get about this business. I know you're going to get some great suggestions from these panelists, but please count on me as hopefully the new chair of Energy, as the chair of the Small Business Committee, to keep pressing this issue. I want to thank President Obama for his leadership and some of the things he's doing. Edie, thank you, and all the women leaders that are here that recognize that women do hold up half the sky. And the stronger we are, the higher the sky will hold. So thank you all so much. Appreciate it.
Okay. Well, listen, we could transition to the panel, but again, we'd like to thank Senator Landrieu and Ernest when he's...
I've got to vote, and he's got senators.
Okay. Well, listen, while we are transitioning for the panel and the fact that we've put out a few stats, let me give you a few stats. Dr. Tina Norris, who will be detailing my office from, I think she's here today, from the Census Bureau, and I was at the White House maybe several months ago, and I learned stats about what's happening here in the States. by the year 2018, Americans 18 years and under will be of the minority race. I'm not talking 20 years from now, I'm not even talking 10 years, of 2018, the majority of the Americans in this country at age 18 and below will be of the minority race. So our leaders just mentioned, it's important for America to embrace everyone here. I know if I looked at some other stats, I know if there are about 160,000 IT jobs in the country, okay? And if we were to go to every university, every college in this country, we will only be able to fill 60,000 of those jobs. Those are the kind of stats that we're dealing with, and it's about the STEM education, which is one of the areas that we're focusing on today. But I tell you, if I did learn another stat, I love stats, but this one in particular was quite alarming, and that is out of our seniors, our high school students in the U.S., a very new stat, stated that we performed 31st place across the world in math. Not 5, 10, 15, or even 20, but 31. We perform at the 23rd in science. So we no longer have the smartest kids in the world. And that is a national security issue. As much as we focus here at the Department on National Nuclear Security Administration as part of the Department of Energy, we make sure we're safe. But I tell you, we have a bigger threat, and that's the lack of STEM-educated students, professionals, business owners, and even government. So we have to really focus on where we have to make a difference, because we're in a SWAT team mode, folks, and it's a point of urgency. So with this group getting together today and over the next few months as we lead up to the White House event, let's take it very serious, the reason we're here today, and also take it very seriously the role that each of us play, both from government, private sector, and academia. Okay? Thank you.
I'm good. Nice quick getaway.
Thank you so much, everybody. So now I have the honor of presenting our distinguished panel, who are here to explore their thoughts on strategies for increasing minority participation in the energy sector. And I have the honor of introducing the only woman on the panel, the amazing and honorable Hazel O'Leary, the former Secretary of Energy. She has a really long bio.
Read that thing.
No,
No.
just highlights?
No.
No?
No.
She needs no introduction? No
And
time.
She saw she was conquered.
Jack Gerard, CEO and President of the American Petroleum Institute. Mauro Gregorio, did I pronounce your name correctly?
Yes, perfect. Yeah.
President of Dow Chemical. Sidney Ribeau. He's the president of Howard University. Michael Renchek, president of Arriva Inc. And the physicist in the room, or many, one on the stage, Sylvester J. Gates, professor of the University of Maryland and the 2013 winner of the National Medal of Science.
Bravo. I can do stuff. Very good.
Secretary O'Leary, would you start with an opening statement, please, on your thoughts?
Yeah, I have several, and I know that we're supposed to do it in 2.5 minutes. First of all, to indicate that the Department of Energy is the right cabinet office to undertake this initiative. It has always been the convergence point for economic security, for national security, for energy security, and this is a hidden secret for seeing that so many people are educated in areas that touch the mission of the Department of Energy. It's the right agency. It has a rich history of lifting and manipulating friends to make things happen for young people. And it's a heritage for the department that has never been lifted. So I hope that part of that will happen out of this initiative. I hadn't done enough of my my work to get out of purgatory when I left the Department of Energy. So I spent my last true career as a college president. I have a lot to say about educating students in STEM areas. And I will tell you with the deepest of respect for Secretary Moniz, ambassadors are fine, but I kind of want to align myself with Senator Landrieu to say that it takes money. As a president of Fisk University, which is the #1 school to graduate minorities in the STEM areas, #1 in the nation, and move them on through lovely collaborations with Princeton and Vanderbilt and yes, even Georgia Tech, to PhDs. But that didn't happen without money. And as a college president, I know how to beg. When Stephen Chu was the Secretary of Energy, it came to tell him, not to ask him for anything, but to tell him that I was about to hit the halls of the DOE because the Department of Energy needed money for scholarships for bachelor's students who were interested in pursuing STEM areas. Well, we got a little bit of money. And we had to manage that money by finding people in the private sector and entrepreneurs willing to match scholarships to move these kids through the pipeline and get them graduated from Princeton and Vanderbilt and other fine schools with their PhDs in science and engineering, in astrophysics, physics, chemistry, and some of the sub-areas. And it was, for me, a labor of love because of my time at Energy. I understood the need. But that's not all of the problem. The tremendous problem exists in America and homes with families of parents who, if you're lucky to have 2 parents in the home, and that is not the norm anymore, there's no one to mentor these children from the home. The grandmother that we all knew, that grandmother doesn't exist anymore. She died, and in some instances, she's doing things we don't even want to talk about. You're lucky if a kid goes to church, and you're lucky if in that church they can meet a physicist, a science teacher, and be taught that science is fun. But if we don't go after this as a nation in a very discrete way that looks for outcomes, if it's important, you measure it. So we've got to attack education, and that means to get after teachers. In Nashville, Tennessee, where I lived, the majority of the teachers in science in the middle schools and in high schools were not certificated to teach science. There's something wrong, folks. There's something wrong. So part of what I hope you will do is look at the success stories and see how you, because I get to move on, I'll be forever interested. What are the great success stories and how do we replicate them? How do we take these DOE scholars who now come through the Department of Energy and have them understand that they have to give back? And how do we tell the stories of the successes that already exist? The right people are in the room, and you know the statistics. America needs people who look like all of us to get behind this effort. It will not happen without money, without long-term commitment, and I believe that this secretary will follow through on the commitment that comes from the report that you write. But I pray that you let that report be part of what are success stories that can be modified to be emulated in communities. I know I'm way out of time.
Thank you. We'll come back to you, Secretary.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Gerard, would you like to share an opening statement with us, please?
I'll be brief, but thank you very much. And let me first thank the Department of Energy, Secretary Moniz and Senator Landrieu in their absence today. I think they started us on a path here of something that we've been looking at in the oil and natural gas industry over the past year or so. And two things that were said earlier, one by Secretary Moniz when he emphasized the all-of-the-above energy strategy on the part of the administration. This is key to recognize the various interests represented here and across the entire energy front, that we have, as Senator Landrieu said, an American opportunity like never before. Today, the oil and natural gas industry supports 9.8 million American jobs. That's up 600,000 from 2 years ago. Just a year ago, working with people like Dot, and thank you very much, Dot, for your leadership, and many other familiar faces I see represented in the audience today, we commissioned a report, a study, to look at minorities in the oil and natural gas industry and employment opportunities as we look to the future. That report concluded that by 2020, we in the oil and gas industry can create another 500,000 jobs right here in the U.S. It also concluded we'd create another 800,000 by 2030. So we've got a unique American opportunity in the oil and natural gas industry. The conclusion also showed that we need many of those from the minority community, be it the Hispanic, Latino community, the African American community, whatever community it may be. We also, within the oil and gas sector, know that over the next decade, roughly, 7 out of every 10 of our technical employees will turn over as part of an aging out, retirement, etc. So as we, as the oil and gas sector, look at this chance, we need not only all of us represented here and many others, we need to take advantage of this American opportunity that will not likely happen again in our lifetimes. So we're reaching out as part of the conclusions of this report. STEM is a very important part of this, we talked about, but it's also bringing our cultures together. We have found that many people know the oil and gas industry generally, but don't really understand the opportunities in it. So as the oil and gas sector, we're going to reach out very aggressively. We've organized a Workforce of the Future committee within our organization. Under Dot's leadership and others, we're already seeking to build and expand our outreach to the minority community, not only as the demographic of our country changes, but to really provide people an opportunity. Senator Landrieu hit it right on the head today. If you look at the net worth of our communities scattered across this country, we can do better. The oil and natural gas industry pays some of the highest salaries in the country, and therefore we're anxious to participate and work together. Thank you very much. I look forward to the dialogue.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go back to you again. Mauricio Gregorio, would you please share with us your opening statement?
Sure. Thank you for the opportunity. I'd like to thank you, Sandra, and DOE for the opportunity to be here today. Dow truly values the strong and lasting relationship with DOE as we collaborate and discuss many topics. And this one is a very important one that we do think alike. Bringing minorities into the economy with great education to explore the natural resources we have to be the most competitive nation that is out there is so important to us. So we cannot exclude, you saw the statistics, we cannot exclude this huge population that we have. I feel that every day running a business that depends so much on STEM resources and energy as well. So I'm happy to be here today because we're not only to talk about the resources that are underground, but more important, the resources that are above ground, who are the ones that can really make it happen. It's not a problem of the future, it's a problem of today, based on those statistics we saw. Today, the age bracket between 18 and 24-year-old is 34% is underrepresented minority already. So do you want them to be the $6,000 net equity or the $110,000 net equity? So it's so important that we act very quickly. And I heard the comment about money is so important. Yes, money is important, and passion is important also. So we need to combine the two. I think there are many efforts around providing the funding. The government has, this administration recommend for the goal of having 1 million more graduates between now and in the next 10 years, together with another 100,000 great teachers that can motivate and inspire people to pursue careers in STEM. We as an industry, we've been doing our share. I can only talk about Dow's example. We've been focusing on 3 areas. First is improving the quality of education. Over the last 5 years, we reached more than 11,000 teachers, making them better equipped to teach STEM subjects. Inspiring students, activities like summer camps in STEM, and is mainly targeted at young women and underrepresented minorities to inspire them again to pursue a career in STEM. And we do have a manufacturing renaissance happening in the United States now, thanks to access to energy that we have probably better than any other nation on this planet. Now, we cannot allow women, people resources, men and women in this society, to trump the opportunity because we cannot explore all the resources we have. So it's important that we match the two. So the money, the resources should be there. Now, how do we inspire the next generation? Is how we meet the physics professional, how we meet the teacher, and that make that connection, that inspire and motivate. It did to many of us. I'm particularly proud of being here today. I'm standing in front of you representing a Fortune 50, 115 years old company that whole existence and ability to compete and grow depends so much on energy and STEM resources. Also proud because I'm of Hispanic heritage, so it's good to be here today with you for this event. Thanks for the invitation. But I think the combination of resources and the passion to make this next generation be interested in STEM is so important. STEM can be the single fastest accelerator to close the social gap that we talked before. Great careers, well-paid jobs, great opportunities, and you really make a change in society, make a change for the future. So I think the challenge in front of us, if we can motivate and inspire the next generation one more time, we're not only improving or increasing, strengthening the fabric of our society, the competitiveness of our business, but more importantly, is the competitiveness of our country in the years to come. So I think we need to focus on that right now.
Thank you, Mr. Gregorio. And Dr. Sidney Ribeau, would you like to share your opening thoughts with us, please?
I gladly will share my thoughts. First of all, it's an honor to be here for National Hispanic Heritage Month. It's so important for us to take a moment out to recognize all Americans and the contributions of all Americans. Having lived in California for 18 years and starting my early career there, I was at universities in the Cal State system where almost a third of our student population were engineering students. And one of them at Cal State LA was right at East LA. And out of that group of 7,000 or 8,000 engineering students, the majority of them were Hispanic. And so there is a tradition, there is a pool, as all the data says. And part of our challenge is to cultivate that pool, is to provide opportunities for the development of those resources. In California for Hispanics, in Philadelphia, in Detroit, my hometown, for African Americans. But any place we find students who have potential, we need to give them the opportunity and the preparation. And that's what we try to do at Howard University, and indeed at all 105 historically black colleges and universities. I want to very quickly mention, go from the top end, from the research component down to 4 or 5 things that we think are important in encouraging the development of interest in STEM and energy-related disciplines at our college. We have an area of climate and climate change. We have the Howard University National Oceanographic Atmospheric Administration Center, NOAA, for science. And what it does is it studies the atmospheres. It studies hurricanes, earthquakes, what happened in New Jersey recently. I mean, why is that important? Because it's a port of entry for students, because it's a contemporary issue that they see on the news, they develop an interest, and they want to study it. And you can draw them into atmospheric sciences in the physics department in a way maybe quantum physics or other areas might not. In addition, we're doing very, very important research that contributes to society, because one of the things I'm going to talk about just briefly is the importance of undergraduate research, starting students early asking questions that really trigger their creativity and generate that interest in science. We also have the Center for Energy Systems and Control at Howard. It was founded in 1984 with the support of the National Science Foundation and the Department of Energy. And this undertakes interdisciplinary research and education in electric energy systems, control, power, environment, economics, energy, and markets. And we also have the Energy and Environmental Law Society. I guess my point here is that at one end, what a university does is really ask serious questions about energy and its impact on society and the potential it affords a society. And through that discussion, it draws the interest of students. It perks that intellectual curiosity, it brings them into the discipline. What we do very specifically, and I want to do this quickly, is just talk about institutionally, how do we really mine that talent pool that's been referred to so earlier in the discussion. First, it has to be leadership. And this could be any of the presidents here, any of the deans here. But you really have to have, from the top of the institution, a commitment to studying STEM, a commitment to the environment and studying the environment and what it means to us. One of our students said to me recently that, he said, Doc, your generation, that would be me, in my 60s, you had civil rights. Our issue is the environment. And it really made me stop to think about that. They embrace this, the impact, environmental sustainability, energy, the dissipation of energy. But this is something that's very important, and it has to be infused from the top of the organization. Second, physical infrastructure. You need to have the laboratories, the space. For my distinguished colleague here, who's a world-renowned physicist, you need the space to really do the kind of work to really interest and excite students. We have on campus a middle school right on Howard's campus. Those of you who know Howard, it's called M Squared. And it's a math and science, it's a STEM middle school. And we start the students early on, hands-on, a lot of equipment donated from several companies. I don't want to name one or two and leave others out. But you can donate if you would sure like to support that. But it introduces the students to science and technology in a very personal way. In addition to that, we provide laptop computers for the families of the students. So as the student learns, the daughter learns or the son learns. So they get integrated and introduced to science and applications of science early on. Undergraduate research, critically important. It's too late almost when a student is ready to graduate to say, we want you to be a great physicist. And that's why you have 10 physics majors in the entire country or some very, very small number. You need to start early on introducing students to the magic of intellectual discovery that comes to experimentation, which in fact is research. We've glorified and mystified research in a way that's unrealistic. Research is asking good questions about important topics, if it's in the physical sciences, the biological sciences, or the creative arts. Mentoring. We all know mentoring is important, but we can do more to really help a student believe in herself and believe in herself and what she might achieve through mentoring than we can do so many other things. And finally, participations and collaborations. One of the beauties of this event today, and I applaud the department, is bringing together the private sector, bringing together people from the academy, bringing the government agencies, the Congress, because the challenge is real, but it's a challenge that we can achieve, but we can only do it through collaboration. So we're very proud to be here, and I represent Howard University proudly and what we're doing in those areas. But as Dr. O'Leary said, there's many, many, many institutions that are doing a great job in the HBC community and also in the Hispanic serving community. But we need to partner with them and create structured programs so all students can realize their potential.
Thank you.
And now, Michael Renchek, would you like to share your thoughts on the subject?
Well, thank you. First, I want to thank the DOE for being able to be here, the secretaries, for also sponsoring this and pushing it forward, Senator Landrieu and the Congressman. It's a pleasure and exciting place to be here. For an engineer to be in front of an audience talking about STEM, finally, right, finally, after years and years of going through the motions. But it's just a great opportunity. And I want to start off with saying just one thing and one thing only. We have a need. We have a need. And the need is so staggering when you look across the country in terms of the people that are moving into retirement, the boomer generation, for the folks coming behind, we have a need. An example, Areva is a nuclear and renewable energy company. In the nuclear industry, we have about 39% of the workforce that will likely retire in 2016. 39%. It's roughly 200,000 or so jobs. Areva is a very typical of that. We have 5,000 employees in the United States. We have roughly 1,000 employees that will be over the age of 60 in 5 years. Now, we love those employees. We want them to stick around, but we also know that isn't going to last forever. So we have a need. And it's summarized very uniquely. We took a look at 2005. When you look at the ninth graders that entered as students in 2005, there were roughly 4 million of them. By the time they graduated college, we're down to 167,000 with STEM degrees. So what does that look like? Does it look like a crisis forming? Does it also look like an opportunity forming? You see, at our company, our average salary is somewhere around $77,000, $84,000 a year within the company, and that's all venues. You can have a very good job. And no, not just a job. I'll say you can have a good career, because as I sit and sign the retirement papers for the individuals leaving, they're having 45 years, 38 years, 32 years. That's a career. That's a lifetime spent in an industry learning, being productive, raising a family, living and building a community for the future. So we see that. What is Areva doing? Well, for so many years, the stereotype of being an engineer or being in STEM has been one of being nerdy or worse, right? So somehow, how do you make it fun, and what's the cool factor that you have with students to get them interested at the elementary school level? Because we find is if you wait too long and they get to the middle school, by the time they get there, they've already opted out because it's not cool. Well, we started a campaign with an Indy race car driver named Simona Di Silvestro. She drives 232 miles an hour. She has a car that really looks cool, really looks cool. But more importantly, she represents one of 3 female drivers in the race circuit. We take her in the car, and we talk about nuclear being part of clean air energy and part of clean air, but also tying that in with General Motors, Chevy Volt. That represents the future. We take her, when she races on the circuit, out to the elementary schools that we do business and communities. We take her out to universities. We try to get the cool factor put into the STEM programs and get the young students interested in engineering. We then go to the college campuses with this same vehicle and the same platform, but we go to the engineering societies, and we look at minority students. We look at electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, civil engineers, nuclear engineers, to show them that there is something else out there besides books, right? There's a practical application for everything that you're doing, and some of these things can be really cool and really fun. Then we also work with the high schools at the next step in terms of starting a STEM academy. We started a Governor STEM Academy in a town we work in Lynchburg, Virginia, where high school students can take college courses and then take those courses and get further credits after they graduate from high school. But all in all, reflecting this does nothing if we don't have outreach efforts that actually bring the students in to work with us. We're proud to say that our hiring, we have about 44% of all incoming new hires as minorities and females. So we're doing very good in this realm. But it's not enough, right? It can't be enough, because when you look by 2018, we're going to have a real shortage. So with that, I'd like to end saying this is an exciting event. We're happy to be here, and we look forward to the dialogue continuing.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And Professor Gates, last but not least, would you like to share your thoughts?
Thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank Secretary Muniz and Director Harris for the opportunity. I and your colleagues for organizing this. To me, this is really quite remarkable. And as was mentioned earlier, this is the right place. This is the right place in the government to be doing this. Also, of course, want to say Buenos Dias and Viva the Hispanic Heritage Celebration here at Department of Energy. This is a recognition of the American family coming together, and it's the sort of thing that we as a country will have to pursue as we move into the future. So with that as a preamble, I've been taking notes as colleagues have been speaking before me, because I wanted to respond to some of the things that I heard. People like me worry about this country. As Secretary Moniz mentioned, he and I have been serving this president for the last 5 years on the U.S. President's Council of Advisors on Science and Technology. And in that guise and in that realm, you have access to a lot of data. And some of this data is just truly frightening. So let me just share. Some people, I am a physicist. That means I'm kind of a nerd about numbers. So come with me a little bit while we talk about numbers. As of 2 years ago, our country graduated more bachelor's degrees in the performing arts than in the engineering disciplines. Now, you might say there's nothing wrong with that. I gave this statistic on a campus a little while ago, and a professor afterwards said, "What's wrong with that?" And I said, the only thing that's wrong with it is that engineers are the people who create wealth for this society. And as our population is increasing, unless we all want to decide we're on average going to get poorer, we have got to empower engineers to do the magic that they do. That's what's wrong with it. What else is wrong out there? Well, it turns out that if you look at the American workforce right now, there was a study that was done 3 years ago looking at college attainment. If you look at the age groups from 24 to 65, we're number 3 in the world. That's not so bad. But if you look at the group from 25 to 34, we dropped to number 9. And that tells you that something rather interesting has happened in our nation. It's the first time in over 100 years that the youngest people in our workforce are less well educated than the people who are just in front of them. 100 years. So we face this crisis. What to do about it? Well, one of the great joys of my life has been the service with Secretary Moniz on PCAST. And in fact, in the booklet, and we'll probably have a chance to talk about today, PCAST has been making recommendations to this president for how to secure what I think of as the American Dream 2.0. This securing goes directly through STEM. And in fact, a number of the initiatives that have been coming out of this administration actually originated in PCAST. So for example, the 1 million more STEM workers, that was our work in PCAST. The 100K teachers and tenures, that was our work with PCAST. The empowering of young people to get early opportunity to have research, that was coming out of PCAST. So in fact, we have been focused on this issue like a laser beam. And we've offered up recommendations, and I have to tell you that this president and this administration are exceedingly unique. This is the first president in my lifetime that has focused such interest on STEM education. It's the first time we've had the platform to understand that this is an issue of national priority. As I'm the last person, let me cut my comments here and just say 1 or 2 things that I think are right. There are many people in our society today who have issues about what is the proper role of government. Should it get out of the way and just let the people proceed? Since I've been thinking about policy, I've been thinking about this question for the last several years. And I think that there is an answer that is modeled in our country's history. The American Academy of Arts and Sciences was established by Benjamin Franklin and John Adams. We as a nation have understood the role of knowledge creation as a handmaiden to wealth creation from the very outset of this country. That has been our magic sauce, by the way. So the proper role of good government, in my opinion, is to enable a state of greatness, excellence, and goodness among the people. We see this in the entire history. Our country has funded the first system of public state universities in the world. It has served us enormously well. We have funded returning veterans starting with the GI Bill, and now currently our veterans returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. So the main thing I tell people is let's do what this country has always done. Let's get past the diversions and let's be Americans together for this new American dream. Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I'm so inspired by everyone on the stage. There's so much wisdom here. And now we're going to open it up for questions from the audience. There are 2 mics on both sides of the aisles, so please come and let's continue the conversation on innovation and magic and science and how to inspire students in the age of reality shows and Kim Kardashian to study STEM education. How do we do that? Question, sir?
I'm Garland Thompson. I write for Hispanic Serving Publications, Hispanic Engineer and Information Technology and U.S. Black Engineer. I have read, Mr. Gerard, the API Extensive Report, Employment Outlook for African Americans and Latinos in the upstream oil and natural gas industry. Question I have is, now that the industry identified all this need, talking about the Great Career Change, talking about more than 1 million jobs between now and 2030 that they can't fill except opening doors to minorities, what really is the industry prepared to do to make that possible? I go to energy conferences. I go cover them, and I have to tell you there are less. When I was at DUG East in Pittsburgh in November, there were less than 10 of any kind of minority in the room in the conference center with more than 3,000 people. You know, so there was no diversity in there. Every place in the technology section, and I do proceed through that, they all say we need engineers, we need technicians, we need workers. And when I say, you know, there are minority serving institutions, HBCUs, that produce engineers, they all look blank like they never heard of it. The colleges that Dr. Ribeau talked about, the universities are going to need donations of equipment, they're going to need in-kind services, they're going to need loan of engineers and managers, they're going to need financial support to be able to boost their production of the engineers and technologists that you need. But I don't see the industry making the effort. I just see the report out there, what's going to be the future coming from you guys in the industry.
Well, we ought to invite you to a number of our meetings that Dot and others have participated in. I think Dot and others could represent. We have organized now across the minority community working groups, if you will, to begin to identify the very issues you've identified. We're learning through the process what we found in that study, and I might add that study was conducted almost a year ago now, well before some of these conversations, because not only do we see the need, but we as an industry recognize we've got to do better in those relationship builds and make sure that we're putting resource and asset in those places, historic black colleges and others, where we can really begin to tap into that potential. We were surprised by some of the research when we found that while many in the communities knew about us, few of them understood the opportunities within our sector. So we're doing a lot of internal work as an industry. As I mentioned earlier, working with our executive committee, which are the chief executive officers of the largest companies in the oil and gas industry in the world. We have identified this as a priority moving forward. I think we've done a lot to date. One of our panelists, I think Derek Spooner, here with us, will be on one this afternoon and talk about not only the committee structure that we're doing a lot of outreach in, Dot and others could talk about it. I think we're well on our way to address some of those concerns, and I think you'll be surprised to see the amount of investment, focus, and thought given to this and how seriously we take this challenge before us.
Mr. Gerard, I have
Thank
to
you.
somewhat respectfully differ with you. I'm not seeing it, and I'm out there covering it. I see the industry saying in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Ohio, we're going to drill 80,000 new wells because the Marcellus Shale is the second biggest gas find in the world. When I go out into the well field, up in Adams County, up in the other places, I don't see anybody making any effort to make those jobs available or even to talk about the training required. That's why I'm here asking those questions.
I understand, and I appreciate your question. Let me just say, not only have we done it in the past, we're continuing to expand that, and this opportunity we've created to date will indeed show that we're going to enhance that considerably. So we'd invite you to contact me after the meeting today. We'll take you to some of those places. We'll show you the effort that's gone on. In fact, Dot and others, I think, can attest to the fact there's a very serious effort underway. It's unfortunate you haven't seen it yet. We'll invite you into the inner workings so you can see it firsthand what we're up to.
There you go. You got an invitation, a personal invitation. Thank you. Yes?
Hi, Eric Powell. I'm a partner in a boutique management consulting firm focused on energy. I've been fortunate enough to be in energy my entire career, almost 20 years or so. And before STEM, I would imagine, I was also inspired by my math and physics teacher in high school, and ultimately kind of led to where I am now. I do think that what I've heard on the panel today, I mean, we're at an inflection point. That's what we kind of talk about some of our clients from, oil and gas, services, and so forth across the gambit. But it also, it's part of a transformation at the end of the day. And I think we heard some of that during the discussion this afternoon. There's some short-term and there's some long-term elements. STEM's part of both that short and long-term. But my question is more focused on what we do now. I think that's the question that came up earlier, and even especially from an economic perspective. And so my question is, what we see and what we share with clients, and probably what it kind of cuts across the whole panel here, what's happening in the industry now. I think we have to start there. This whole disruption of natural gas, low price, abundant source that we have there. How's it impacting upstream? How's it impacting your feedstock from Dow perspective? How it's impacting your business? What's happening there? That's the number one. And number two, this whole infrastructure boom. If you're talking about water, gas, or power, nuclear, there's a whole infrastructure resiliency element that's going on. So can you talk about that? Because that really leads to a lot of discussions on where the opportunities are, not only just from a student academic perspective, but also a business and economic development perspective.
Well, I guess I can comment on that because it touches the industry and things that are important to us. I think you pointed the remark I made about the resources underground and the resources above ground. And there are two things happening at the same time. There are more than 100 projects, energy-intensive related, happening right now in the United States. We are one of them, and in our case, it's a $4 billion investment in the U.S. Gulf Coast. The combined is $100 billion of investment that is coming in the next few years. So there's a lot of investment coming. There will be need for infrastructure, need for people to make sure that all happens. Now, how we're tackling that, obviously, we welcome the opportunity of competitive energy, welcome the opportunity to invest again. 10 years ago, the industry was getting out of this country, now manufacturing is coming back and is growing, and we need to continue to foster and make sure that that happens. Now, from the pipeline perspective, and touching a little bit the previous question is, we're trying as an industry, and you saw some examples here today, we have a program with MIT, is a chemistry AP program that is to foster people from minority and women to come into education of science, and we hire 35 people from that program. We have a program with the Delta College, a community college in Midland, Michigan, and we made 400 people go back to industry because we trained them in energy-related jobs, and as all for STEM or from minority background. There is also investment in many other fronts of the associations that are mentioned here today. I think that we need more resources, we need more money, but I don't think the industry has been silent because it's so important to us, even selfishly. We need it. It's not that we need the shale gas. Shale gas by itself doesn't mean anything if you don't have people that are able to extract it on a sustainable manner and make it a profitable opportunity for all of us as a society.
I'll talk just about energy in general. As the economy goes, electricity goes. So as the economy picks up, electricity will certainly continue to pick up. Nuclear will play a large role in energy production, electricity production well into the future. For the first time in 30 years, we have 5 new nuclear plants being built in the United States of the latest technologies. In the Asia-Pacific Rim, there's 187 gigawatts of new nuclear capacity going online by 2020. So this energy source will be around for a long time. We have needs now to start changing the guard, as they say. As folks retire, we need new folks coming in. In fact, I'm using this event to recruit some new candidates potentially from some of these college presidents, right?
Jobs.
We need interns, we need co-ops. So we need to start moving forward with it, and energy will be vital to the economy in any way that you look at it. It will be a driver of our economy.
May I speak to this a little bit? Because one of the things, if you look even at 10 years out, there are things that we need to do differently in our educational system. And that's, in fact, what a number of the STEM recommendations that you will find in the program are aimed at. We're aware of this million worker shortfall that's out there, that unless we deal with it, we are going to actually impede the growth of this economy. So we do not have the people to drive the economy in this spirit when innovation, entrepreneurship is how nations are going to be wealthy. So one thing that has to be clear is that we, all of us collectively, in talking to our multiple communities, is to make sure that everyone understands that what's at stake here is not the production of more scientists and engineers, but what is at stake is the growth of the American economy. That's what we all have an interest in. And in particular, in minority communities, we have got to get this message out to our young people that this is how you engage, as opposed to perhaps becoming a rapper.
Perfect segue. Thank you, Dr. Gates. You and I met at a PCAST event, and I had a chance to speak to you, Tanisha Bolden, and I had a chance to speak to you about some of my concerns about that very topic, about the images that we see and how they are counter the goals that you all are speaking about, very lofty goals. And so as I listen to you all, I think about all of these technical words, all of these, lofty ideas, but how do you really relate that to the elementary and middle school students? Because the system, as you said, is not set up to support that. I host a very successful Girls in STEM Summit in Baltimore, at which, thank you, Director Harris attended, and the girls really related to her because she looked like them. But as you try to relate to those elementary and middle school minorities, how are you going to send that message in your organizations when the people who look like them are not represented and in front of them? So thank you, Director Harris, for really supporting that effort at the DOE and everything you all do here. But I really want to know, how are you going to combat those mixed messages? Because I have a teenager, and I can tell you, she doesn't think STEM is cool. She wants to shop. She sends me her wish list, and there's nothing STEM on her shopping cart, okay? But I can tell you right now, she's got passion and she's got energy. And hearing Director Harris speak, hearing and meeting Rhonda Hewitt from Lockheed Martin, and hearing about different jobs that were out there, that's fine, but it wasn't cool to her.
Yeah, if I might.
Yes, please.
This is a topic that's debated often, you can imagine, on college campuses. And so any of my colleagues here could join in on this. It's important to have, I've called it mentors, or someone who looks like you, and that's a first level identification if you go through the psychological continuum. But it's also important to have math and science and disciplines related to math and science taught in an innovative, exciting, and challenging way by anybody of any color. I think some of the real work that the scientists are seeing now, and you're seeing universities that are having success, they're having their faculty go back and rethink how they know the content, but rethink ways that present it to engage students, to connect with students. And again, when I guess I glossed over it, but when I say undergrad research or middle school research, but the idea of discovering new ideas and new information, not as research, but as a way of becoming excited about yourself and your life. And I think that's the challenge. The next frontier is pedagogy. How do we teach math and science? And no matter what color or gender the person might be, it's nice to have someone you can identify with, but you have to make that topic accessible. And to the extent that it's accessible and then it's connected to real experiences and internships and jobs and money in the summertime, then the whole story changes in a very positive way.
If I may, one thing I think that's really important in the minority communities is that we as parents have got to model this. I'm actually the father of two 20-year-olds who are in college. One of them is a biology major, the other's a double major in math and physics, and it's my daughter who's the double major.
Bravo. Yeah, I'm a contrarian, and I stepped into it to begin with to talk about the fact that not all parents in our minority communities are equipped to model these things. And so we need to find other mentors for our kids in elementary school. And I'm convinced after 8.5 years at Fisk that I need to catch them in kindergarten. And there are no people thinking about this. The Department of Energy has a modest grant, which was actually cut in the sequester, to bring kids from middle school onto college campuses for after-school help in science and technology. But as that money dries up, and it will very quickly if we're not careful, we all know my politics, but forget that aside, we've got to find other ways to get this job done, and there must be surrogates for parents who are well-intentioned but have no time and are too busy lifting the weight of life in that place they live and trying to keep their kids safe.
And if I may respond.
Yes.
The PCAST report on K-12 STEM education addresses precisely this point, that we have got to provide resources to support our parents as they try to build a better future. So again, it comes back to this point of Americans supporting Americans for the future.
I'm with you. I just like to get it away from the report and into the action.
Well, you know, we can't do without the money.
I do understand.
Okay.
Go
I'd like
on. This is
to
great.
further that with an example. Again, I talked somewhat about our STEM outreach into the elementary schools and into the middle schools using an Indy race car and Simona Di Silvestro. We had an event at Morgan State where we had elementary school and middle school children participate with college students with Simona, who talked about how atypical she is for a race car driver. Right, so suddenly these tangible or intangible things become real, because here is someone that's going to drive around the streets of Baltimore at 220 miles an hour in 2 days, right? And just the energy from that event throughout the evening, and we continue to do this with her around the country. Why, these are the communities that we serve in, and I think from an industry perspective, if we each do little things like that, they eventually amount to much bigger things.
Well, do we have time for one more question? One more question. So on this side, you've been patiently waiting.
Well, thank you. Just quick questions for the gentleman from Dow and from Arriva. What sort of successful examples have you seen of engagement between industry and institutions of higher learning? For those of us that are interested in cultivating productive relationships that will be compelling value propositions for industry. And also to the gentleman at Arriva, I would encourage you to speak with Dr. Deloche from Morgan State about the upcoming offshore wind procurement from the state of Maryland. Thank you.
You meant higher education, right?
Yes, higher education.
More than higher education. We do participate actively with universities. We allocated a budget of $250 million for the next 10 years to 11 strategic universities that will continuously be there, because many times people come in and out and you don't provide the continuity that is needed. So we made that commitment. I mentioned a minute ago about the effort with MIT is really looking at the higher level education, and we make a commitment of hiring the candidates that would qualify and would apply to a company like Dow. So I think it's a combination of continuity, perseverance, being there, because it doesn't go away very quickly, so you need to be there. So that's one example I can use. We have several examples in our company of people that we attract and they stay and make careers at Dow coming from different backgrounds, and some of them because we sent them back to school. My higher level education was paid by Dow, so we do that continuously and we continue to educate people that way.
At Arriva, we have a program in Lynchburg, Virginia, that starts with STEM in the high schools. It evolved with the Governor's School one step further this spring. But then we also team with the Central Virginia Community College, where we have a program where a student can go to school at the community college and work for us at the same time. So they have an income coming in while they're getting educated. If they do well enough, we've worked with the University of Virginia and Central Virginia Community College to have a reciprocal program that if they get a high enough grade point average, they can enroll as a junior at the University of Virginia in an engineering program. And we pay for a large portion of that education. And I'm happy to say we had our first 8 graduates last year, including the summa cum laude, who said that they would not have been able to go to college had it not been for that program. So that's a practical application.
I'm so sorry, but we're out of time for this session. The conversation will continue in the afternoon, And I have Director Harris, who will close out the session. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm grateful.
Thank you. Amazing panel. Another round of applause for our folks. Thank you. All right, well, listen, folks, we grab our food very quickly. We have a session that starts promptly at 1. So we have the food tasting. We also have a number of Subway and other places that we have here in the department. But we do need everyone back in their seats promptly at 1. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Engaging.
Bring the kids, yeah. Okay. We get the kids out, so thank you. Thank you very much. No, thank you very much. Thanks again for the opportunity. Oh, you need a microphone back. Hey, were you up there? Sure, absolutely. My card. I just need to give the microphone back to the gentleman here. I was getting out with the microphone. I don't know I can do it out.
Yeah, they do, and they really do. So keep up the good work.